These are our objectives. In general, you just need to follow the PowerPoint. Make sure the sound is turned up on your device so you can hear the narration. Your instructions are in the yellow boxes on each of the slides. Don't forget, if a slide asks for homework, send it in via Show My Homework. And if a slide asks for Educate to be completed, don't forget to do it by the date that's given on the slide.
These are our objectives for this lesson. We want to be able to explain the difference between distance and displacement. We then want to be able to explain the difference between speed and velocity. We need to remember typical values of speed for different situations, and we need to calculate the speed of an object using the formula speed equals distance divided by time. Think back. Can you recall what the difference between a scalar and a vector quantity is? And if you can, which of these are scalars and which are vectors? Speed, displacement, velocity, distance. Stop the video here while you have a think. You should have remembered that a scalar quantity is one that has only size or magnitude. Those two words mean the same thing, size and magnitude. A vector quantity has both size and direction. And from our starter activity, you should have remembered that speed and distance are scalars, whereas velocity and displacement are vectors. Have a look at this situation. 2 points A and B. Now imagine a car travels from point A to point B along this road here. Okay, now the distance travelled is, for example, 1,000 meters on the road, but that doesn't give us any indication of the direction in which that distance has been travelled. Distance is a scalar quantity. It only has size or magnitude. It doesn't have any direction associated with it. Now, displacement, on the other hand, displacement is the distance travelled in a straight line from where you start to where you finish. So in this case, for example, displacement might be 500 meters, but it has to have a direction. And if you look here, that way is east. So our displacement would be 500 meters to the east. So the car can travel 1,000 meters along the road. That is the distance, but there's no direction, whereas the displacement is 500 meters east. So now we know the difference between distance and displacement. We can have a look at speed and velocity. The speed of an object tells us how far an object has traveled in a given time. There's no direction, so speed is a scalar quantity. The velocity of an object tells us how far an object is traveling as well, but also in which given direction it is traveling. So velocity is a vector quantity.
There's a formula we can use to calculate speed. Speed equals the distance travelled divided by the time taken. Now there is a number of points you have to be careful with here. One, you're not given this equation, so you have to memorize it. Two, be careful of what the letters signify. In physics, S is the distance travelled, V is the speed, and T is the time. Here, we've put the equation into a formula triangle for you. And you need to practice so that you can rearrange the equation in case you need to find the distance, the time, or the speed. Let's have a look at a work example. A cat is walking at a speed of 0.4 meters per second. Calculate how far the cat walks in 50 seconds and how long will it take to walk 32 meters. First of all, let's write down our formula. The distance equals the speed times the time. Substitute in the two values that we know, the speed 0.4 meters per second and the time 50 seconds. Put that into your calculator and the answer comes out that the cat will travel 20 meters. The second part of the question, the speed is still the same, 0.4 meters per second, but now you want to know how long it would take the cat to walk 32 meters. So you know S and you know V. So if you rearrange your equation to give you T equals S divided by V, and you can use your formula triangle for that if you need to, substitute in the figures, and out comes your answer, 80 seconds. Let's have a look at a slightly more complicated example. A lorry moves at a steady speed and travels 24 meters in 30 seconds. The lorry then slows down and travels a further 45 meters in 70 seconds before stopping. Calculate the average speed of the lorry for the whole time that it is moving. Now, in this question, there are two parts to the lorry's journey, and we need to allow for both parts. So, first of all, let's work out the total distance that the lorry travels. Well, at the start, in the first part of the journey, it travels 24 meters, and then in the second part, it travels 45 meters. So the whole journey adds up to 24 plus 45, 69 meters. Then we need to look at the time. The first part of the journey takes 30 seconds. The second part of the journey takes 70 seconds. So altogether, the lorry travels for 100 seconds. So now we know the total distance and the total time. We can put down our formula. Speed equals distance divided by time. Substitute in our figures, and out comes the answer, 0.69 meters per second. That's the average speed over the whole journey, the two parts of the journey added together. During your exam, you might be asked to remember typical everyday speeds. So stop the recording here and see if you can match up these 6 pictures with the speeds. So you should have got this for typical everyday speeds. Green pen your answers and correct any that are wrong. A typical person walking, the speed is about 1.5 meters per second. Running is about 3 meters per second. Cycling about 6 meters per second. A car travels at about 25 meters per second. A train at about 55 meters per second, and an aeroplane flies at about 250 meters per second. And you need to be able to recall examples of these typical speeds. Here are some questions to test your knowledge so far. Answer them in your book and then green pen them using the next slide. Now it's time for some calculation practice. Here you're working out the speed when you've been given the distance and the time. Answer these questions in your book. On this slide, there are some more questions. You've been given the speed and the time, and you need to work out how far the lorry is traveling. This time you've been given the speed and the distance, and you're required to work out the time. Answer in your books. And this is a final sheet asking you to work out some speeds. Answer in your book. This is your final task for this lesson. Can you please send photos of your work from this lesson, including your notes, all the questions answered and green penned from slide 15, and answers to the questions on slides 16 to 19 to Mr. Rahman by Friday the 22nd of May. Thank you.